blood drips onto a flower, and rows of severed heads are displayed beneath a cloudy sky. Another prisoner is about to be beheaded before the judge. The executioner raises his blade and swiftly brings it down on the prisoner's neck. Cutting off a head in one strike is nearly impossible most of the time. It takes multiple swings to fully sever the neck. The samurai swings his sword repeatedly to decapitate the prisoner, but against all expectations, the sword shatters, shocking both the watching judges and the executioner himself. Meanwhile, the unharmed, white-haired prisoner sighs and wonders why he can't seem to die. He's killed countless people by now, and never expected to live a long life. Shortly after, the prisoner is returned to his cell, while a woman records his life story. The prisoner's name is Gabimaru, a shinobi born in the village of Iwagakure, trained in assassination techniques since childhood. Many lose their lives during training, but the survivors develop superhuman bodies. The woman understands how breaking a blade against his neck would be trivial for someone like Gabimaru. He didn't even need to use ninjutsu to protect himself. She asks if he can show her his ninjutsu, but Gabimaru refuses. The next day, the judge orders Gabimaru to be burned at the stake. Burning is typically a punishment for arson, and the searing flesh causes unimaginable pain, while the heat makes muscles contract violently, bending the body so severely that bones break. Sometimes, the condemned are mercifully killed beforehand. A samurai tries to grant Gabimaru mercy before the burning, but the spear breaks when they attempt to stab him. They proceed with the execution, and Gabimaru is engulfed in a massive inferno, yet moments later, he opens his eyes behind the flames. Still smoking, Gabimaru is taken back to his cell, where he speaks with the woman. He explains he isn't even resisting. If anything, he wants to die too. The woman urges him to continue his story so she can keep writing. Gabimaru recalls being told only that his parents were killed by the village chief when he was a child. He doesn't know why and feels nothing about it. He also doesn't dream, because shinobi have no grand purpose. They just kill as ordered. As for why he was captured, it was because he tried to leave the village. His allies betrayed him during a mission, leading to his capture. The chief probably ordered it no one is allowed to leave. The following day, Gabimaru is sentenced to death by oxen in the arena. Oxen are brought in and tied to his legs. This method doesn't just tear a person limb from limb, it splits them from groin to chest. The samurai whip the oxen into a run, the ropes tighten around Gabimaru's legs, yet the oxen tire and pant, and Gabimaru remains unharmed. The judge grows furious at this humiliation. The woman approaches Gabimaru and points out that despite claiming he wants to die, he's still resisting. She asks why he wanted to leave his village. Gabimaru explains he was the best in Iwagakure, respected by the chief. He even married his daughter, but she was foolish, an indifferent, naive girl who turned his life upside down, nagging him to remove his shoes before entering the house, to pray daily, to give thanks after meals. He grew sick of it, not wanting to lose his edge, so he asked to leave. The chief agreed on one condition, a final mission. After his capture, Gabimaru realized it was a trap. He'd been stupid to challenge the chief in the first place, so he gave up on life. That night, a samurai warns the woman to stay away from Gabimaru for her own safety. He reveals Gabimaru isn't just a former Iwagakure shinobi. He's the legendary Hollow Man, a tearless, emotionless killer who slaughtered 20 men during his arrest. Rumors say Iwagakure shinobi consume an elixir of immortality from the land of the rising Sunday, but the woman counters, if he's truly hollow, why did he resist so fiercely? Meanwhile, Gabimaru reflects on her words. She's right, he has been resisting. When they tried to behead him, he reinforced his neck. He wonders why he won't just die when he has nothing left to live for. And the next day, Gabimaru is sentenced to death by boiling in oil. Oil ignites at over 370 degrees, so it can't boil long in clay pots. Not that it matters, since everyone dies before then, but Gabimaru steps out of the shattered pot, his body aflame yet unharmed. He questions why he endures this. He should have no purpose left. The judge trembles with rage at yet another failed execution. The woman closes her notebook, telling him she's finished recording events and is ready for the next phase. The following day, the judge leads a bound Gabimaru down a hallway. Gabimaru asks what execution awaits him this time. The judge smirks this time. He'll finally die. The door opens, revealing the woman kneeling inside. Confused, Gabimaru listens as the judge explains. She's not just an inspector. She's Yamada Asaemon Sagiri, a sword tester and executioner sent from Edo. The Yamada Asaemon name belongs to a clan of master swordsmen who've served as executioners for generations. Sagiri tells Gabimaru the shogun has ordered his execution. Gabimaru instantly expects his head to fly and hesitates in fear. He realizes Sagiri is the real deal. Breaking his restraints, he leaps back. The judge panics, ordering Sagiri to kill him immediately. In an instant, Sagiri is behind Gabimaru, her sword raised high. She swings, but Gabimaru dodges. She asks why he moved. Staying still would have granted his wish for death. Gabimaru clutches a bleeding wound on his neck. Sagiri attacks again, and Gabimaru vaults over her, wondering why his body refuses to die. Sagiri explains that through her work, She's witnessed many final moments. Some feign bravery, others beg for mercy, some lie to themselves about accepting death. Gabimaru has a vast emptiness inside, but he lied about one thing. He does have a purpose. He loves his wife. Her words trigger Gabimaru's memories, how truly happy he was with his wife. He snatches a guard's sword and charges Sagiri. Their blades clash before the guard can react. Sagiri tells him he couldn't die during his executions because of his feelings for his wife. He's lying to himself about having no purpose. Gabimaru screams at her to shut up, she knows nothing of his world. He roars that he's hollow and attacks again, but in his mind he remembers his wife bandaging his wounds, telling him he's not hollow. He replies that the title fits he's used to horrible things. She hugs him, insisting he's kind, the only one who never recoiled from her scarred face. In their village, men are soldiers, women bear children, they're not allowed to live as people. Her father burned her face so she'd stop trying to live normally. Gabimaru flushes with embarrassment. His wife laughs, pointing at his face. Someone like him could never be hollow. Back in the present, the fight continues as Gabimaru insists he's hollow, a monster without feelings. No matter what, he'll never be human. In the past, he earned money by killing. His wife tried to hide her disappointment, so he decided to stop. They could live quietly. That's what she wanted, so he thought the chief would understand. Instead, he was cast out. As Gabimaru prepares another attack, Sagiri suddenly offers him a chance, an official pardon. Not only are all charges dropped, but he'll also be under the shogun's protection. Neither the judge nor Iwagakure can harm him or his wife. But there's a condition. Gabimaru must go to the other side. Confused, Gabimaru asks if she wants him to die. Sagiri explains there's a land of fertility and joy, free from pain, Shinsenkyo. Since ancient times, it's been called paradise, said to lie far southwest, beyond the Ryukyu kingdom. Now, it's been found. Filled with butterflies and beautiful singing, it's rumored to hold the elixir of immortality. The shogun sent expeditions there, but only one boat returned, filled with flowers growing from the samurai's corpses. 5 more missions vanished. Instead of fear, the shogun declared the land truly mystical. The elixir must be there. He ordered condemned criminals to be sent next. Whoever returns with the elixir is pardoned. Sagiri came to find candidates, skilled individuals with a strong will to live. She tells Gabimaru his wife is still in Iwa, waiting. Since his arrest, she's shut herself away, speaking to no one. The only way to reunite with her is to travel to this mysterious island, compete with other criminals, and secure the pardon. Will he risk it all for a life with her? The judge interrupts, refusing to pardon Gebimaru. He orders his men to attack. Meanwhile, Gebimaru remembers his wife's face again. Tears fall as he asks Sagiri if she still wants to see his ninjutsu. Suddenly, flames erupt from Gabimaru's body. Moments later, he sits atop unconscious guards while Sagiri holds the judge at bay. Gabimaru tells her he'll do it. He'll find the elixir of life. In the past, a condemned storyteller asked to be executed while finishing his tale. Sagiri's father, Yamada Asaemon Kichiji, agreed. Even after decapitation, the man finished his story. He hadn't realized he'd been beheaded. The strike was perfect, painless, emotionless. Witnessing this, Sagiri vowed to follow her father's path. After training, she performed her first execution flawlessly. 1 strike, 1 head. But afterward, she saw the ghosts of the dead clinging to her. Her superior said fear tainted her sword, causing painful deaths. She promised to improve. Next time, she was told to look at her blade's reflection. Again, she saw the dead staring back. Sagiri realized her sword was heavy with fear, making executions agonizing and her blade heavier. She still wonders how to remove doubt and fear from her heart, just like her father. These days, the convicted criminals, recruited by Seiman, are gathered before the shogun, His Highness Tokugawa Nariyoshi. The criminals start causing a ruckus, making the samurai uneasy about what might happen. Meanwhile, Sagiri looks over the criminals and recognizes their identities, ranging from thieves and serial killers to grotesque murderers. The leader of the samurai begins telling the criminals their mission: travel to Shinshen Kaio and return with the elixir of life. Whoever completes the mission first will receive an official pardon. Sagiri notices the convicts' moods change immediately upon hearing about the pardon. She notices one of them, the serial killer, get excited at the chance to be freed and kill again. She wonders whether she could kill someone without doubt or fear if she truly believed the person was evil. Meanwhile, she notices Gabimaru yawning from sheer boredom. One of the prisoners, Konoichi, recognizes Gabimaru. She notes he looks smaller and more miserable than rumors described. He's been captured too. Gabimaru apologizes for not living up to her expectations, while Sagiri admits she was wary of him at first. But now he's indifferent, like a different person. Is he like the other criminals? Or worse? She checks her blade, but trembles when she imagines a ghost in its reflection. The samurai then describes the island they will head to. The criminals start yelling again. This makes the samurai leader order them to remove their hoods. They bring out something covered with a white cloth. When they pull the cloth away, beneath it is a man growing flowers and branches from his body. The samurai explains he's the only soldier who returned alive from a recent expedition. As they can see, he's no longer human. When he returned, lumps covered his body that started blooming the next day. About 60 other members of the mission are still missing. They have no idea what's happening on the island. Since the man before them is their only source of information, the criminals begin shouting that they should have been warned how dangerous the island. Meanwhile, one samurai insists that blooming into flowers is a blessed thing because it came from heaven. The criminals argue back, telling the samurai to be grateful they're being given a chance to travel to heaven in the first place. One convict, a young boy, asks how they can be sure the elixir is even there when they have no information from the island. The samurai leader replies they can still back out because participation is voluntary. A tattooed criminal accepts the offer and walks away from the meeting, but before he leaves, a sailor severs his head. The samurai leader also explains they'll be assigned monitors when they reach the island. After all, they're all death row convicts. Sailor Yamada will accompany them as their overseer. If they misbehave, their heads will be cut off immediately. Naturally, if their monitor dies, whether by accident or murder, their heads will be cut off too. If they return without a monitor, they won't be allowed back on the ship. Gabimaru asks Sagiri if this is true. She quickly confirms. He accepts it calmly, making Sagiri wonder whether he's brave or just stupid. Then the shogun whispers something to the samurai leader. After getting his orders, the leader also explains that before they land on the island, they must reduce their numbers. Not all of them will be allowed to disembark because ship capacity and available sailors are limited. The criminals are confused about what he means, but one speaks up slowly. The young scarred man strangles another criminal and reveals that the samurai want them to kill each other. He smashes someone else's head with a rock and urges the others to act quickly or they'll be killed. The samurai leader agrees, saying anyone who dies there was useless on the island anyway. However, he warns the criminals not to loosen their restraints. A chaotic brawl breaks out as convicts snap each other's necks, kick one another, and smash heads with rocks. Sagiri watches the chaos while Gabimaru sits calmly in place. As the fighting continues, more and more criminals die. The shogun enjoys the spectacle because he rarely sees fights to the death in their era. Meanwhile, the samurai leader despises the shogun for enjoying the fight since their hands are tied. The criminals can't even fight properly, it's just pure chaos. Then the shogun asks another samurai which of the criminals have red seals. These mark criminals with exceptional skills that may verge on supernatural powers. The samurai points to them one by one. First is the blonde, scarred young man who started the brawl. Despite his youth, he led a gang of bandits. He's exceptional and founded a bandit village deep in the Iwo Mountains. Next is the woman who recognized Gabimaru. She was involved in the siege of Sagwa Castle. It was Konuichi who bound every warrior in the castle. Then a skilled duelist with long hair known as the Blade Dragon. Next, a huge man rumored to eat bears head first. Rumor says neither swords nor spears were effective against him. Among them, the most notable is the living legend, Gabimaru the Hollow. But when the samurai points him out, they're confused because he's just standing in the middle of the fight without moving. At the sidelines, Isun, Sagiri's senior, asks if she's overwhelmed. He tells her it'll be more brutal on the island, not only among the criminals, but she'll be at risk too. When that happens, will she be able to kill? He also tells her she's unsuited for their work. Sagiri is hurt, but can't respond. Isun asks why she bothers carrying a sword, saying a warrior's daughter should live quietly in her house and stay away from the executioner's fate. Sagiri takes a deep breath and answers that if she could, she would. However, even as children, she already knew. Everyone born in the Yamada clan earns a living from other people's deaths. Testing swords on corpses, severing criminals' heads, and making medicines from bodies are their future. Children chased her everywhere, threw stones, and called her the hangman's daughter. She can try to look away, but the truth is reflected in the blade. Back in the present, a group of criminals plan to escape the prison. They see Sagiri and decide to attack her and steal her sword because she's a woman. Isun moves to kill them, but Sagiri stops him. Instead, she approaches them herself. She remembers how she couldn't escape the executioner's fate in the past, but she won't accept it quietly. Now she'll find her own fate. She draws her sword and prepares to attack. Fear surfaces again, but she still cuts off the heads of the criminals attacking her. She wonders why her fear keeps devouring her, but suddenly hears Gabimaru tell her that killing people is never a good thing. Gabimaru now addresses the shogun, asking if he can find another way to choose who goes. They may be killers, but not all killed because they wanted to. His guards are angry at him for speaking to the shogun so plainly, but Gabimaru repeats that killing people when you don't have to is the most natural thing in the world. Meanwhile, the samurai leader orders a group of criminals to kill Gabimaru. If they succeed, they automatically join the expedition. A criminal gladly accepts and picks up a rock. Gabimaru tries to reason with them, but the convict replies he has no problem killing if it means he survives. He throws the rock at Gabimaru, but Gabimaru simply dodges. With no choice, Gabimaru sighs and decides he'll have to fight. The convict asks why, since Gabamaru doesn't want to kill anyone, but Gabamaru replies he can't bear death either. Just thinking about what he's about to endure weighs on his mind. Then suddenly the convict rips his throat with his hands, slashing himself. He later attacks the condemned, killing each of them by kicking their heads or biting them. Some rush at him, but he leaps on them easily and kills them. Their fight leads them to the shore where Gabamaru continues killing his attackers, finishing the last by driving his hands through the man's chest. And the shogun and samurai are stunned by his skill. It seems they realize the man drenched in blood before them really is the hollow legend. Meanwhile, Sajiri remembers how Gabamaru said killing weighs on him exactly how all her killings weigh on her sword and reflect on its blade. She wonders whether what she needs is not strength to be unafraid of killing, but the determination to bear the burden of that fear and the souls she took. A tear falls on her cheek, prompting Ison to ask if she's okay. He asks whether the responsibility of killing Gabamaru might be too much for her, but she steels herself and promises to kill him. The samurai leader announces that all remaining survivors will join the mission. They are Tamiya, King of Bandits, Kane the Twisted, Blade Dragon, the hunter who caught 100 Noragai from Sinka, Harubo, Prayer of Killing, Gabamaru the Hollow, Shinobi, the Fugitive, Pakiju, the Cannibal Courtesan, Konuichi Yosaruha from Kishu, Muramacha, the Apostate, Rokiru, the Bison Giant. Each of the 10 convicts will be accompanied by an Asiman executioner. They will board a ship, travel to the undiscovered island, and find the elixir of life. They're heading to heaven, to the sky, to Shinsen Kyle. Even after being pierced by blades and bleeding on the ground, he remains standing. After witnessing this, Gabamaru can only conclude that the chief of their Iwagakure village was truly immortal. Apparently, it was because of a medicine he got long ago from a land across the sea. Back in the present, Gabamaru is now in another land across the sea. He comments that based on Sagiri's expression, she doesn't think the elixir of life exists. However, Gabamaru assures her it's real. He doesn't know if it's in this place, though. The two enter a forest full of beautiful flowers and towering trees. Seeing the environment, Sagiri remarks this place certainly makes one think the elixir might exist there. Gabamaru replies it's terrifying to him. There's no rhyme or reason to the kinds and habitats of plants growing there, which makes it feel unnatural to him. Not only that, they remember the flowers growing from the samurai's body. Gabamaru cuts the rope binding his hands, but Sagiri tells him he's not allowed. Gabamaru argues it's ridiculous to expect to find the elixir with his hands tied. Sagiri insists it isn't their choice, it's the shogun's orders. She can't overlook any attempt to break the rules. He points out that binding his hands isn't the only ridiculous thing about the mission. They were only given food and water for 3 days, and their only guide is a drawing. It seems they're not actually trying to find the elixir. Sagiri threatens Gabamaru with her sword and makes clear she's not his ally. She's his executioner. It won't be her problem if he fails to find the elixir. If he refuses to be bound, she'll simply execute him. Gabamaru sighs and agrees to have his hands tied again. Out of nowhere, a huge metal ball attached to a chain suddenly strikes him, sending him flying. The ball then returns to the hands of another convict, Kane the Twisted. Sagiri is surprised because the Asiman executioner guarding Kane the Twisted is standing beside him. Kane the Twisted boasts of his victory when Gabamaru suddenly wakes up again and snaps his neck back into place. Sagiri explains to him that Kane the Twisted is a warrior monk who fell in love with weapons during his training. Rumor has it, he stole over 100 weapons from other warriors. However, Gabamaru points out that Kane's hands aren't bound. Sagiri asks Kisho why Kane's hands aren't tied. Kisho answers that Sagiri is the only one still strict as usual. They can only tie their hands on the way back. He notes that Sagiri is the lowest ranked samurai because she's honest to an extreme. Meanwhile, Kane speaks again and tells Gabamaru that he's bold and brave as the rumors say. He plans to test his weapons on him to satisfy his heart. After all, weapons only shine if they drink blood. Then he pulls a large mace from his weapons bag. Gabamaru argues that if they fight there, the others will get the jump on them. Kane replies that's exactly why he's doing it. They weren't given any leads to start with, so he plans to kill the other criminals first, and then take his time looking for the elixir. Gabamaru is his first target. Tisho tells them they're free to kill each other if they want. They're only there to watch. Sagiri agrees, so Gabamaru sighs and decides he must kill Kane. Kane rushes at him, and Gabamaru prepares to fight, but Sagiri suddenly calls to him from behind. She orders him to bind his hands. With no choice, Gabamaru ties his hands while Kane attacks him with all kinds of weapons. Maces smash against his head, hammers break on his side, and Kane tries to stab him with a spear. Gabamaru leaves him unhurt, attacks him, and finishes tying his hands. Meanwhile, Kane thinks this is convenient since he can test all his weapons on him. Gabamaru starts fighting. Kane lifts him into the air with the spear he tried to stab him with. All kinds of weapons fall from Kane, and Gabamaru kicks the spear so it strikes Kane. Kane falls to the ground. Sagiri is surprised Gabamaru managed to defeat Kane with one blow, but Kane slowly gets up, showing that the armor was stitched directly to his skin. After a few moments, Gabamaru stands over Kane's body, which was full of all kinds of weapons. He then shows his bound hands to Sagiri and tells her they should go start searching for the elixir. Meanwhile, Kisho draws his sword and cuts off Kane's head. He picks up the head and bids the two farewell. Gabomaru asks him if they didn't need to fight, and Kisho explains they are neither enemies nor allies. If the criminal in charge dies, they simply take his head and go back. Sagiri asks him to be careful on the way back, but Kisho replies he considers himself lucky to be able to return home this quickly, unlike Sagiri who thinks she's safe just because Gabomaru's hands are bound. Tisho tells her he's already seen a lot after only moments of heading to the beach. Some tried to cut the competition down before they even landed, some planned to work together, some pretended to work together. The criminals didn't follow society's rules from the start. They'll try to survive however suits them. Sagiri asks if the criminals breaking the rules wouldn't void their pardon, but that makes Kisho call her strict again. For samurai, the shogun's word is absolute, but what really matters are their priorities. The first priority is the elixir. Everything else comes after. The shogun would rather break the rules to get the elixir than fail. He asks if Gabomaru should be killed for her, but before he can draw his sword, Gabomaru stops him and asks him to stop wasting time joking. He just wants to get back to his wife. Meanwhile, on the beach, the giant Rokiroda and his guards have arrived. Rokiroda suddenly attacks Ison, forcing him to fight. However, his sword breaks on Rokiroda's skin. Moments later, Rokiroda is already feeding on a dead samurai's corpse at his feet. Elsewhere, the king of thieves, Aza Haruso, kills the monk. The girl from Akajino is killed by her guards. She'd tried to seduce Murer and Yusoria, who had attempted to form an alliance. Both had their swords thrust through their bodies. Tisho also tells Gabomaru that the shogun may have contacted his old village Ugakir, and tells Sagiri that their mission will probably also decide the next head of their clan. After Kisho leaves, Sagiri realizes he was right. Even though they were traveling together, she still doesn't understand Gabomaru's true character. She was about to ask where they're heading next, when Gabomaru suddenly attacks her. In the past, Gabomaru's parents asked permission to leave the village after they had a child. In response, the leader killed them and decided to raise their child Gabomaru as his own. Young Gabomaru was told that emotions, even the love between parent and child, make people weak. If he isn't strong, he can't protect those dear to him. Back in the present, he remembers his wife's face and attacks Sagiri. She tries to tell him he's breaking the rules, but Gabomaru answers that if the Ugakaku reach the island, everything will turn to ash. He must find the elixir before that, and Sagiri will only slow him down. He attacks Sagiri again, and she realizes she must carry out the execution of Gabomaru, but for some reason she hesitates. Meanwhile, Gabomaru wonders why he can't kill Sagiri even though he had multiple chances during their fight. He seems to be hesitating about something. He remembers his wife's words telling him it's natural not to want to kill someone, and she asked him to listen to his feelings because he's no longer his old self. True bravery is being honest with your emotions. From then on, he felt more emotions after meeting his wife. He even felt hatred when an enemy promised revenge on his wife, which made him slay them mercilessly. He's about to kill Sagiri again, but his hand stops before cutting her throat. He wonders what this weakness is that struck him. He manages to destroy Sagiri's swords with one blow and begs her to die peacefully because killing her would hurt him too. Sagiri laughs bitterly and asks him if he has any feelings left. After a long fight, Gabomaru now sits over Sagiri's body with his weapon pointed right at her throat. He declares he has no feelings because he is Gabomaru the Hollow. He's killed so many people, he's tired of it now. Killing someone else makes him feel nothing, yet his hand trembles and he can't steady it. The ghost of the leader that used to loom over his shoulder has been replaced by the warm embrace of his wife. He wonders why he still hesitates when he shouldn't feel anything. Sagiri looks at his face and realizes the expression he wears now is always the one he has when he has to kill, as if he's trying to bear something. She notes the environment Gabomaru grew up in simply raised him wrong. He's not an empty man who feels nothing. He's a human with feelings, and watching him allowed her to confront her own emotions. Gabomaru cries and laments how weak he is now because he can't kill a girl. Sagiri answers him and tells him, this isn't weakness, it's the seed of strength. She believes that not running away from your own feelings is strength. Gabomaru remembers how his wife said the same thing in the past. Sagiri sits and tells him she'll overlook his behavior this time. If he repents his crimes, faces his feelings, and struggles to restore his life, she hopes to see that. Meanwhile, she tells herself she must face her own feelings too, so she can become stronger. Elsewhere on the island, Tammy, the sword dragon, finds a group of scattered Buddha statues. He notices a butterfly that landed and stung his arm has a human face. He remembers how flowers bloom from corpses of the dead, so he quickly cuts off the stung hand. Large scorpions also begin appearing around him. In his guards, giant human-like monsters begin to wander. Meanwhile, scorpions also appear around Gabomaru and Sagiri as they face a fish-headed monster known as the Blade Dragon. Unlike any in the 8 provinces, Tommy used to look for men stronger than him to fight. When he finally stopped, his lord asked him to become an officer. The lord was a great man who took pride in his grand palace. His family crest made him a dragon too, so Tommy agreed to work for him. But during a drinking session, the lord told him he might be called a dragon but couldn't kill a real dragon. Tammy was insulted, so he cut the dragon on the lord's gate. Because of that, the lord's entire clan hunted him, and he was sentenced to death. Once he received a pardon, he'd be cleared of all charges. Then he planned to train again until he could split the lord's palace in two. The accompanying samurai comment comments he doesn't understand him, and Tammy replies that samurai are stranger for cutting people's heads. The samurai named Fuchai answers that beheading isn't the only thing their clan does. They also test swords and make medicines. They also dissect people so they can understand the human body and help develop medicine. He draws his blade and points it at Tommy, warning he won't allow them to be insulted, and the two enter the forest. Fuchai asks Tommy what he'll do, and Tommy explains he'll eliminate the competition. Then he can take his time searching for the elixir, and most importantly, use his sword as he pleases. He figured he wouldn't get chances to engage in thrilling duels with strong individuals again in this peaceful world. Fuchai agrees with the plan and compares the mission to making insect poison. The longer you wait, the stronger the remaining poisonous insects or convicts become in this case. However, he wonders if the plan will work when not all poisonous insects are present. If the shogun runs out of patience, they'll send the next batch of insects. That's how they ended up in their current situation where monsters start appearing one after another. Gabamaru wonders what kind of creature stands before them now, and it has a fish head but also wears prayer beads around its 6 arms. Still, his instincts warn him this creature, whatever it is dangerous. The monster breaks the prayer beads on its arm and attacks Gabamaru with all 6 fists. Gabamaru jumps over them and kicks the fish head. The fish manages to grab his feet and toss him to the ground. He stands again and remembers his master's teachings. Shinobi rule number 5. Don't fight an unknown enemy. He wonders if he should just run or bring Sagiri with him. Then the fish monster wraps its tail around Gabamaru and swings him around. It slams him down again, and Sagiri checks his condition. She sees Gabamaru's hand is bleeding, and he tells Sagiri they have to run now. Unfortunately for them, huge monsters with strange smiling faces start appearing all around. They're trapped. Gabamaru activates ninjutsu and begins attacking the monsters one by one. Sagiri is stunned by the supernatural scene before her. She wonders if they're really in heaven or a big monster slaps her, but she manages to dodge. An insect grabs her leg, and the monster prepares to attack again. Gabamaru realizes the situation Sagiri is in, but tells himself he must focus on the enemies in front of him first. However, his body suddenly moves, and he saves Sagiri from the monster. They're about to be attacked again, but another Asaman kills the monster that was attacking them. A new woman from the Kanochi arrives with 2 Asaman following her. The woman introduces herself as Yozora of the Kanochi. Gabamaru remembers his wife telling him to thank anyone who helps, so he thanks Yozora. He asks why she helped them when they're supposed to be rivals. Yozora steps closer and tells him he seems very trustworthy. He's still standing despite how much blood he's lost, and he even saved Sagiri earlier. Yozora teases Gabamaru's chest and says she's really scared of this dangerous place and will do anything he says as long as he protects her. Gabamaru grabs her arm and forces her to the ground, warning her that he can't be seduced. Yozora sits up and apologizes, but says her offer to work together is serious. 5 people are safer than 3. Sagiri asks why exactly Yozora has 2 Asaman with her. One of them, an Asaman named Genji, explains he was assigned to watch Moro but died when he was tricked by Yozora. He decided one handler wasn't enough to control her, so he chose to guard her as well. Gabamaru and Sagiri stare at him. Sure, Yozora just seduced him. The other Asimon introduces himself as Santa. Yozora says they encountered bugs, monsters, and crazy statues on their way here. They know how dangerous this place island. Finding the elixir quickly is important, but there's no point rushing blindly and dying without a plan. Sagiri agrees there's no problem working together as long as they all consent. Yozora happily responds to that and rushes to hug Gabamaru, who pins her to the ground again. Gabamaru says he can't trust the Kanachi, but Yozora smiles and suddenly pulls him to the ground too. Then she says there's no trust they can betray each other anytime. Even if they find the elixir, only one of them will be pardoned. She suggests they just use each other as long as possible. Gabamaru jumps away and Yozora comes back with a mischievous look, begging him to join. She offers information in exchange for Gabamaru's strength. For example, they think the monsters are the threat, but the real danger is actually the bugs. Human-faced butterflies fly around the monsters, but their nests and behavior are unknown. Their shells seem to contain hallucinogens and poison. Curious, Gabamaru asks how she knows all this. Yozora explains she got close to Moro and talked to him about it. She tested all this on him. The brambles are gross but can be safely ignored. They only eat dead flesh. There are other insects too, but they don't attack unless you get close. Gabamaru asks what ultimately happened to Moro. Yozora admits she tricked his guard into pretending to be dead, then killed him. Santa also mentions that many items worn by the monsters have Buddhist or Taoist designs. Buddhism and Taoism are different religious traditions, so it's strange to see them mixed together. The Buddhist statues are odd too. He suspects they really might be in paradise. Sagiri agrees. Although the monsters look fantastical, their anatomy and muscles seem like living creatures. Gabamaru asks Yozora why she seems so willing to reveal so much. Is she that desperate to survive? Yozora suddenly suddenly becomes sad and reveals she has a younger sister who's terminally ill, and they can't afford any medicine. She became Kanochi to earn money. She endured hellish training, but one day the village chief told her she couldn't do anything and betrayed her. Gabamaru tells her that if she's lying, she should shorten her story. Yozora realizes she's been exposed and says she doesn't need a reason to want to stay alive. She just doesn't want to die while she's still young. Gabamaru has one last question for Yozora. What did she actually do to Moro? Yozora remembers leaving Moro and flowers growing from him, but she tells Gabamaru she didn't do anything to him. He finally agrees to join them as long as he gets information, and they simply fight together, not fully cooperate. Yozora hugs him happily and thanks him, but Gabamaru pins her to the ground again, reminding her he's married. Meanwhile, Sagiri, who had been watching them, slowly starts to feel drowsy. She reflects on her performance since arriving on the island. She lost her footing in front of the monsters earlier and feels very weak. Then she faints to the ground. Recently, a young man named Tuma became a retainer of the Yamada clan. Within a month of joining, he showed skill with the sword, and his trainer Isen tells him he only needs to execute a criminal, and his name will be added to their ranks. Isen wonders which criminal Tuma should execute, but Tuma speaks up and says he has a suggestion. Later, Tuma walks by the row of prison cells and greets one of the inmates, the king of thieves, Aza. He tells Aza he came to rescue his older brother. He infiltrated the Yamada clan and rose to a high position in just 1 month to save him. Aza also shares that he endured a month of torture at their hands. Aza asks how they'll get out since the judge's men won't give up easily. Tuma smiles and says there is already a way to make them stop chasing them. Once they complete the shogun's mission, they can get a pardon. Nowadays, Tuma is Aza's appointed executioner. The two face their own group of monsters. Aza happily attacks a monster while Tuma praises his brother's quick reactions. He's always been like that. Even when the lord the father served committed a terrible act that ruined their plan, even when their mother died and they lived in poverty, even when their father was executed in revenge for his lord, even when they were attacked by thieves, he responded to every situation and ended up taking control. Aza became the king of thieves until the day the police surrounded them. He told Tuma to run and promised to save him later. Aza's blade breaks after fighting a few monsters. More are coming, so he tells his brother they'll sneak through. They run and dash past the monsters blocking their way. Unfortunately, one grabs Tuma by the hair. He reaches for his brother, who stops and looks back but keeps running away. Tuma realizes this is also the source of his brother's strength. He attacks the monster, holding his hair, and declares they won't leave it behind. The monster standing in front of him suddenly explodes as Aza returns, now carrying their own weapons. A spear suddenly passes by Tuma's cheek and grazes him, and the monster speaks to them, saying killing is a sin. The monsters begin to speak and surround them while the brothers are stunned by the sudden turn of events. Tuma trembles with fear and wonders whether they're not in paradise, but Aza remembers how his life always seems affected by those who commit crimes, and he shouts that he no longer cares and starts rampaging, killing all the monsters with his huge club. He declares he will do whatever he wants. Tuma watches his brother standing atop a pile of corpses and appreciates how truly strong his brother island, and he remembers when they were kids, and Tuma cried because they didn't know what to do, but his brother calmed him and told him he could just follow. So Aza tells Tuma their plan. They'll kill every monster and criminal on the island, then they can drink the elixir themselves. Death won't tell them how to live elsewhere. Sagiri is carried by her teammates as they walk to the far side of the island. She dreams of her father looking at her with disappointment and tries to ask why, but she just wakes up. Genji greets her and explains she's currently in a cave on the island. She was poisoned by butterfly scales and lost consciousness. Sagiri stands up and Genji warns her not to move because she's not okay yet, but she says she can't. She has to keep her eyes on her prisoner outside. She's surprised to see the others sitting like they're camping and asks what they're doing. Gabamaru explains he's making dinner. Santa repairs their torn clothes, and Ozahira lies on a swing watching over them. Now that Sagiri is awake, Santa suggests they review what they know together. They can eat the food Gabamaru prepared while they talk. Yozora gets angry when she sees the food, pointing out it's kakakechujin, a form of ninja rationing. Gabamaru explains he made it from things in the area while gathering ingredients and that he's explored the whole island. Unfortunately, he didn't see anything promising that might resemble the life elixir illustration. Yozora asks if he knows anything about the life elixir. Gabamaru, thinking of his village's immortal chief, decides to keep that information to himself and tells the others it's the first time he's heard of it. Gabamaru continues explaining that, while gathering ingredients he learned about the varied plant species, are mixed but mostly ordinary mainland plants. What caught his attention was several flowers that looked like samurai who had become flowers. So where did the other samurai they sent end up? He assumes most of the plants on the island they now see were those humans. The grim news crushes the group's morale, and Yozora throws the food she was eating at Gabamaru. He points out he didn't use those flowers to make the food. In any case, he didn't find anything resembling the tangerine fruit drawing they were given. Santa suggests they shouldn't focus too much on the drawing. The terms life, elixir, and paradise used by the shogun originally originally came from different cultural concepts. The statues scattered across the island strongly resemble Buddhist figures. Worrying about religious consistency might be a waste of time. What they should focus on are the statues themselves. Does the island have the technology to create stone statues? If so, who made them? Do they live here? Sagiri's opinion is that the island is far too dangerous for people to live on. The monsters and insects' behavior and environment are mysterious. When she cut them, she felt like they had flesh and bones but no organs. Their appearance is strange too. Parts of other animals are stacked over human-like forms. Santa also notes that the items the monsters wear look poorly made. In other words, they're like deformed giants. They're scary but also stupid. Gabamaru shares that creatures that can live without having limbs point to immortality, then shows them that the elixir might actually already be on the island. Santa agrees, saying their only clue about the elixir is the monsters themselves. Later, Genji advises Sagiri that she should take a boat back to the mainland. He can assume responsibility for her now that his own criminal is dead. He points out that Sagiri is first the daughter of the Yamada clan, and second a woman her duty is to marry the next head of the clan. In her current situation, she'll die on the island. Does she have the strength to kill Gabamaru? Where is her sword? She's already using someone else's blade, not her own. Sagiri remembers how her own sword broke during her fight with Gabamaru. Genji tells her the sword is the warrior's heart, and that she's already lost the heart of the Yamada clan. Santa joins the question and asks whether they can return easily, while the samurai they sent haven't come back even if they used a boat. He's not sure whether they can escape. Meanwhile, a sailor named Tenza tries to flee the island by boat with his criminal Noragai from Senka. Noragai doubts they can leave because the currents are against them. Even if they manage to escape, he'll be executed for failing to obtain the elixir. Tenza promises to speak to the shogun on his behalf. He promises to take him home among all the criminals involved. Noragai deserves to live more than the others. While doing so, they finally spot a large boat on the horizon. Tenza gets excited, but as they approach, they see it's actually the wreckage of all the ships that came before them. Then they see mysterious creatures stalking them around the wrecks, so Tenza draws his sword to defend them. Noragai scolds him because most animals are attracted to shiny, aggressive things, but it's too late. A large claw attacks them and destroys their boat, leaving them stranded on the wrecks. More claws begin appearing around them, and they have to run while Tenza cuts down any claw that approaches. Noragai remembers his grandfather's words to run because he's the last of the Senka line. He wonders if his current situation is punishment for what he did. In the past, Noragai offered to help a group of samurai who were lost in the mountains. The samurai instead asked if he was part of the Amishi and, if possible, wanted to rest in their village. However, the samurai slaughtered their entire village. It turns out Amishi is the term for those who refuse to submit to the shogun and live as unique cultures in the mountains. Under the current shogun's rule, they're considered rebels. After killing everyone, they captured Noragai, hoping to torture him to learn the locations of other villages. In prison, he was found by Tenza. He couldn't understand how an innocent boy should be executed, so he offered him a mission to join the expedition instead. In the shipwrecks present, they're shocked to find another sailor, Kisho, who left after his guard was killed by Gabamaru. Kisho is now overgrown with flowers everywhere. Tenza wants to help him, but it was a trap set by the clawed beast. Seeing Kisho's dead body, Noragai kneels and tells Tenza to run without him. He has already accepted his current state as punishment for killing his village. Tenza fights the clawed monster while trying to convince Noragai to move. He tells him he doesn't care about the village or his grandfather. What he wants to know is whether Noragai wants to die. Tears fill Noragai's eyes as he remembers his grandfather and admits he only wants to live and return to the mountains. Tenza hands him a sword and tells him they must do anything to survive. He points out a usable boat nearby and tells him they must go there. After a long, grueling escape, the two limp to the shore injured and lean on each other. They rest on the beach and think about what to do next. Norogai notes that the currents in the area probably all lead back to the island. Unless they find a current that leads out, they won't be able to return even with the elixir. The monsters are also different from those on the island. While Tenza tells Norogai that since the boats carrying the samurai who turned into flowers have come back, there must be a current that leads out. As they wash themselves, Tenza notices Noragai's figure looks feminine. Norogai asks what he's talking about. She's obviously a girl. Tenza panics while Noragai teases him and asks him to marry her. Meanwhile, Sagiri's conversation with Genji ends. Genji advises her to leave while Santa partially agrees. He actually wants Sagiri to stay in case Gabamaru needs to be stopped. He's noticed Gabamaru seems different now than when they left, and he even saved Sagiri. Sagiri thinks it over and remembers how Gabamaru helped her several times. Later that night, Sagiri goes to speak with Gabamaru, who was watching. Gabamaru asks how she feels because he thinks the insect poison worked quickly due to the wound he gave her during their fight. Not only that, he thanks her for calming him. Rashness and randomness are dangerous, and if Iwakura is coming, he must prepare a counterattack. Sagiri's surprised by his determination and tells him he's strong. Yet Gabamaru points out that she's stronger than him. He doesn't know if it's technique or power, but she looks strong to him. The next morning, Genji asks Sagiri if she's ready to leave, but Sagiri tells him she won't go. People mock a woman who carries a sword. Not only that, sometimes Sometimes her father looked at her with disappointment. They all want her to live as a woman, but if she lives as a Sato's throat-cutter daughter, strangers will despise her. If she lives as a warrior of the Yamada clan, her family will avoid her. She can't bear to be seen as just a woman. She kneels and asks Genji to see her as a samurai and let her live her own way. Genji smiles and replies that this isn't the samurai way of life. The island is a battlefield, and it's not a place for women and children. Genji attacks Sagiri with his sword, but to his surprise, Sagiri easily steals his weapon. He scolds her and retrieves his sword. However, a shadow looms behind Genji. It's Rokiroda. Genji pushes Sagiri away and draws his sword, but Rokiroda is faster and strikes him, cutting part of his abdomen. As a child, Rokiroda ate a lot while his parents watched happily. After his snack, it was playtime where he stacked stones, but after a few scenes, his parents appeared drenched in blood. In the present, Rokiroda's attack sends Genji flying through the forest where he crashes into a tree. Sagiri runs to him and kneels beside him. She tells him he needs immediate medical attention, but Genji weakly tells her she must run. It's too late for him. When he looks back, Rokiroda is already above her, ready to grab her. Fortunately, Gabamaru appears and sends Rokiroda away after flying and kicking him in the face. Gabamaru asks who the enemy is because he was barely hurt despite the attack. Sagiri explains that it's Rokiroda, the bison giant. Isin is supposed to protect him. Gabamaru recognizes that Rokiroda's eyes resemble a predator's eyes that have pinpointed its prey. He knows it will be hard for them to escape together, so he takes off his mask and prepares to fight. He wonders how he should destroy Rokiroda since his previous kick was ineffective. Meanwhile, Rokiroda rips a tree out by the roots and throws it at Gabamaru. Gabamaru jumps over it while Sagiri covers the injured Genji. Gabamaru knows he's physically outmatched. He calls out to Ozora, who was sitting on a nearby tree, and asks how long she plans to just sit and watch. He begs her to fight with him like she promised. However, Ozora laughs and reminds him their agreement was that she gathers information while he fights. She starts cheering Gabamaru on, with no intention to help. The fight continues with Rokiroda swinging his giant arms at Gabamaru. Gabamaru dodges the attacks and realizes Rokiroda's attacks and reflexes are fast. He can feel instinctively that defending against those grasps is impossible. Touching them would mean instant death. He decides to make it a long-range fight by planting his foot on the ground and throwing broken rocks at Rokiroda. Even though the rocks shatter and puncture trees behind Rokiroda, the giant himself remains unharmed by the attack. Gabamaru concludes, projectiles are ineffective, so he pulls out his cloth belt and uses ninjutsu, the unmanifest blade. But even that immaterial blade comparable to steel can't cut Rokiroda's skin. He goes through his list of ninjutsu, but they all seem ineffective against the giant. Meanwhile, Sagiri tries to tend to Genji by wrapping his wound with bandages, but the blood soils them, and Genji tells her it's useless. She must run. Sagiri stubbornly refuses and tells Genji he can survive if they can stop the bleeding. Genji tells Sagiri she's a strange person. Moments ago she bragged like a man, but now he can feel a woman's affection in her. Sagiri cries that there's no man or woman now. Genji finally smiles and understands Sagiri's mind. Instead of splitting everything into two like man or woman, strong or weak, she accepts opposing concepts as part of herself. Her conviction is the middle way. Genji offers his sword and reminds her a warrior's sword is his spirit. Maybe Rokiroda already killed Essen. If she's a samurai, Genji won't ask her to run anymore. He begs her to kill Rokiroda. Sagiri accepts his sword. Meanwhile, Gabamaru is still analyzing his opponent. Close combat is too dangerous, but projectiles are ineffective. If he had a chance to use his ninjutsu ascetic flame, he might have a chance to fight, but Korokuda would crush him like an insect if he got close. If it were 2 against 1, they could find a blind spot. Suddenly, Rokiroda screams in pain as his little finger is cut. Sagiri arrived and tells Gabamaru that if someone inserts their blade at the junction of muscles, tendons, and bones, they can cut even the strongest bodies, understand the opponent's body structure, and strike the gaps. This is the Yamada Seiman style. She brandishes her sword and joins Gabamaru. Santa, who is watching with Ozora, announces he wants to go treat his comrade Genji's wound. However, Ozora points out it's already too late for Genji. More importantly, no monsters have come near despite the noise they're making. As such, it's better to keep observing them. Sagiri notices Rokiroda has already stopped the bleeding from his fingers, which makes Gabamaru deduce they need a single killing blow if they want to win. They must target the gaps between his bones and cut off his head. The only problem is Rokiroda's neck is very high, so they need to make him kneel. Gabamaru suggests Sagiri cut Rokiroda's legs from his blind spot to make him kneel. In the meantime, he'll handle Rokiroda's attacks. The next time Rokiruda attacks them, Gabamaru blocks his fist with his kicks, while Sagiri lunges to his back. Her master Aizen's face flashes in her mind, and she slashes Rokiruda's legs in anger. To her surprise, her blade doesn't cut through his legs. He recoils while Rokiruda swings his arm at her. Gabamaru asks if she's okay, and Sagiri notes that if she attacks too hard, just like before, she'll get hurt. She needs to stay calm, set her feelings aside, and use only reason. They repeat their plan. Once Rokiruda attacks, Gabamaru dodges when he notices his leg has been injured. He must have worn it out earlier while avoiding Rokiruda's blows. Meanwhile, Sagiri attacks again, trying to remain calm, but her blade still bounces off Rokiruda's arm. She tells Gabamaru that cutting through Rokiruda's bones while he's raging will be difficult. Rokiruda's movements close the gaps between his bones and leave no space for her blade to penetrate his body. And heads are usually cut off from people who bow their heads, so killing Rokiruda with one strike would require him to bend. They're thinking about their next attack when suddenly Rokiruda's stomach rumbles. Then he begins to cry out so loudly that everyone nearby has to cover their ears. That distracts Gabamaru enough that he doesn't notice Rokiruda's next attack and takes a full hit, falling to the ground. Gabamaru rises from the rubble. He managed to take the attack, but he begins vomiting a lot of blood and collapses to his knees. Rokiruda attacks the wounded Gabamaru again, forcing Sagiri to jump in front of him. She remembers Genji's words about her conviction being the middle path, and realizes that instead of rejecting her emotions and using logic alone, she can accept both conflicting things as they are. That lets her calm herself and block Rokiruda's strike with her sword. Her feelings turn into strength, but she uses reason to keep her aim the middle path. Gabamaru's eyes widen when he sees Sagiri's power. Santa, who's been watching the fight, also comments that Sagiri's rank would usually be 12, but clan ranking isn't determined by skill alone. They're assigned based on suitability to lead the clan, so Sagiri lost rank simply because she's a woman. In raw skill, her sword ability is better than first class. Genji also notes that Sagiri might fear the island's monsters, but like an executioner facing a criminal, she shows no fear. Sagiri continues to fend off Rokiruda's attacks, until Rokiruda stumbles accidentally on soft ground. Sagiri quickly takes the chance to go behind him and cut his neck. However, Rokiruda jumps into the air and pulls back before she can do it. Fortunately, Gabamaru has a new idea to keep Rokiruda's head low. Though his idea might be a bit extreme, Gabamaru realizes their only option to beat Rokiruda is to cut off his head, but that requires more than exceptional physical ability. It needs Yamada clan skills. The clan specializes in beheadings. Gabamaru steps forward and activates his ninjutsu again, wrapping his body in flames. Seeing this new development, Yozora quickly stands and tells Santa they need to retreat. Gabamaru begins attacking Rokiruda again with stone projectiles, but this time he wraps them in fire. Rokiruda bats them apart across the battlefield. He also throws a fireball directly at Rokiruda, who deflects it and sends it into a nearby tree. Gabamaru continues assaulting him with flaming attacks that scatter everywhere. Sagiri then tells him that should be enough, and anything more would be reckless. The flames are starting to spread now, and Yozora tries to escape. The blazing Santa says Gabamaru isn't just trying to kill Rokiruda now, he's planning to burn the whole area. They plan to use the smoke from the oils in the raw wood by setting branches and leaves on fire. They can fill the upper area with smoke right away, and if Rokiruda keeps raging and crying, he'll run out of oxygen and inhale a lot of smoke. Then the poison in the smoke will make him lose consciousness. In other words, the carbon monoxide in the smoke will bind with the blood's hemoglobin, quickly causing the whole body to become oxygen deprived. Gabamaru also suggests Sagiri stay low to avoid inhaling the smoke. When Rokiruda finally collapses to his knees, vomiting and coughing from the smoke, Sagiri stands over him with her sword raised. He tries to slap her away, but his hand is stopped and held by Gabamaru. He screams at Sagiri to cut Rokiruda's neck now, because he won't last long in a strength duel. Sagiri calmly studies Rokiruda's neck and pinpoints the gap between his bones. She inhales, and in one swift motion brings her sword down across his neck. Before he dies, Rokiruda's life flashes before his eyes. He was just a huge, hungry boy who destroyed everything he touched because of his enormous strength. Once when he was hungry, he accidentally slapped his parents and killed them instantly. He never understood why he was always hungry, or why no one wanted to play with him. Sagiri apologizes to Rokiruda for frightening him and letting him loose in a frenzy. She understands he was just misunderstood, and gently strokes his cheek. Then she closes the eyes of his severed head and wishes him to rest in peace. Meanwhile, Gabamaru tells her they have to go now because the fire is growing stronger and might attract the area's monsters. Sagiri takes one last look at Genji and flees with Gabamaru. Memories of her training and lessons from Genji flash through her mind. Later, when they're away from the fire, Gabamaru and Sagiri hide in some bushes and watch monsters wandering toward the flames. It confuses them because animals usually instinctively avoid fire. Gabamaru sighs and suggests they head in the direction the monsters came from. It might be dangerous, but they have no choice. The monster's environment is their only guide to the elixir. Gabamaru also asks if she's not worried about the safety of their fellow executioners, but Sagiri remembers that everyone accepted this mission knowing it might kill kill them, so it would be disrespectful to worry too much about them. If she's truly worried, she should just find the elixir so they can all finish the mission. As they go deeper into the forest, they see Yozora and Santa's silhouettes. Gabamaru was about to scold them for not helping when he finally sees what they're looking at. It's the remains of a village. Santa comments that if this place truly is Shinsenkai, the monks likely lived in that village. In another part of the forest, Oza and Toma are killing their share of monsters. Oza drinks monster blood to restore his energy while Toma asks about the monks he mentioned earlier. Toma explains the monks are a kind of supernatural being according to the Shanxian philosophy. They resemble old men who chant strange spells and are rumored to be immortal. Supposedly, they were the ones who lived in Shinsenkai, not the monsters they're fighting now. Then Oza senses someone approaching them, and when they go to look,